Good evening. Tonight we're starting conversation which we call dialogues about culture and education. To add a little humility to this, we'll call it dialogues in time of COVID. In our dialogues we'll have our own Socrates, and that would be the role for Boris Hurgin. And I'll be responsible for the other side of the dialogues. So let's call me Plato for tonight.
Thank you so much for assigning such a noble role to me, Socrates. It's the first time in my life I'm playing this role, but it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm behind the camera.
Well, hopefully you will show up in the camera.
Yes.
sometime.
Maybe not today, but yeah, anyway. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure to have a dialogue with you.
So we'll be introducing to our honorable audience new project of Roslyn-based non-profit organization called Bilingual Educational Cultural Perspectives. Project called Long Island Institute for Math and Sciences. This is very new initiative, and we have very strong feelings that it's timely. In our hectic, chaotic world, it's important that people stay rational, and science and math are the backbone of rationality and human thinking and human actions since certainly Greek times, probably even back to Egypt. Boris, of course, will be asking questions, very pointing, very inquisitive about the standing, status, and immediate future of our educational system. And I will try to respond from a point of view of this institute that would be bringing a new approach to learning, discovering, better to say, math and sciences for the new generation, for generation who are children today but will be adults tomorrow, and will be responsible for building and maybe rebuilding the new world. And with that, and by the way, since we are bilingual, we'll be talking in two languages.
Да, по-русски будем говорить тоже.
Yes. By virtue of our common background, we are more fluent in Russian than English, but we'll try our best to express our thoughts in both, so audience would understand, our American audience and our formerly Russian audience would understand what we're talking about. So Boris, please tell me what's on your mind at this point.
I have a lot of things on my mind, but before we're going to start this episode 1 of our dialogues, I would like to tell the audience that this is not the first time we discussing very interesting topics, and actually our first discussion led to this one. These visuals, this storytelling has been born as a result of our discussion of very interesting topics, which briefly could be described. What is a mathematics? What is science? What is the educational process? How people learn things? What is a neural network? And tons of other things. To me, frankly speaking, the learning process probably is one of the most important things in life, if not the purpose of life per se. What I am very curious about, because Anatoly's background as the in theoretical physics, in nuclear physics, to me, who has nothing to do with science, is something a sort of a magic, and pretty much lies on a boundary between science as we know it, so-called dry science, and philosophy. Philosophy, as we think of this branch of science, which was probably comprehensive representation of scientific point of view since ancient Greece times. And that's what my first question is. What is mathematics? What math is? How math is related to the material world? And maybe math is better than material world? Maybe it's more beautiful.
Well, mathematics comes out of practical needs. People used to be very practical back 5,000 years ago. In ancient Egypt, in Greece, old Greece. So people were relating their knowledge, their desire to develop proficiency to practical tasks. Like Greeks created geometry because they needed to plan their lands, to divide their lands. Same goes to ancient Egypt. We all know how profound and beautiful was Egypt architecture and building and magical world of their practical lives and religion and cultural events. So in order to make those things happen regularly, build buildings consistently, measure lands thoroughly, create ships, Archimedes law. Well, you couldn't do without it. It would all required some kind of rational thinking. And Greek, being great philosopher, moved from philosophy to creating tools, precise tools, to implement knowledge in a quantitative form. So if we look at a sequence of events, first philosophy, then logic, and measuring, creating accounting systems, creating space designs. But in order to do it consistently, laws of mathematics in the form of Roman law, making them strict and very limiting. So creating proof environment for the mathematics. But to make this story short, otherwise we will never finish our conversation, mathematics is a science of possible, while other sciences are sciences of reality. Mathematics can analyze things that don't exist, but could be imagined. All of it. Anything that could be imagined could be analyzed but by mathematics. Real sciences only deal with reality.
That's interesting. Мы в прошлый раз говорили о теореме Gödel'a. Не является ли эта теорема какой-то точкой или линией разрыва в бесконечных возможностях математики? Потому что, насколько я, непосвященный человек, понял, что хотел сказать Gödel, в своей теореме он сказал, что существуют такие системы, которые математика описать не в состоянии. Я прав или нет?
Да.
Или я должен подать в отставку как
Сократ.
Как любитель?
Да.
Или как Сократ?
Оставайтесь в Сократах.
Да, да, да.
Stay Socrates.
We're talking about Gödel theorem.
the thing of mathematics is that if it was imagined as complete and provable system, it would be possible to devise the entire world out of it. What theorem says, mathematics cannot be proved if complete, or cannot be complete if proved, meaning that no mathematical system could be perfect in a way, which might reflect the fact of life, or better to say, if we're not talking about biological life, property of existence. Existence cannot be formalized. Right yesterday, I received very interesting reference to newest scientific paper by new Nobel laureate in astrophysics, which proves that there are relict science and data in our current universe reflecting to the previous universe that existed before ours, before Big Bang, which means, obviously, or not obviously, but certainly, that our universe may be modeled by physics, by mathematics, but not entire thing like previous universe or any other universe that can exist could be formalized. So Gödel proof, especially second theorem, tells us that mathematics is not perfect by nature, cannot be.
Is the theorems more on the philosophy side, or it was a mathematical proof with formulas, with symbols?
It was very strict proof.
So it was mathematical, like traditional mathematical proof.
It belongs to the domain of mathematical logic. Very certain ways of proving it exist. It's not a judgment; it's a proof.
Okay, so yeah, so it's not a logical and philosophical assumption, which is nice and beautiful, but it's a purely result of chunks and chains of mathematical proofs and computations.
In a way, you can say that mathematics proved its own imperfection.
Okay, all right. Interesting. My next question, relationship between physics and mathematics. Physics is a science which describes, correct me if I'm wrong, describes the reality, or at least try to describe the reality in many reincarnations, not necessarily visible, not necessarily tangible, but reality. That's the purpose of physics, to explain the laws of nature. Analyze, explains, and whatever. Mathematics, as you said, is different animal. So my question is it possible to be a scientist who explore physics without being a mathematician? That's a thing which always was interesting to me when I was a kid, because I fell in love with physics. I couldn't say the same about mathematics. And I was very disappointed when I realized that you cannot be successful in physics if you are a very mediocre mathematician. You need to have tools and instruments. But it's not a question about success. It's a question about domains. The difference in mentality for scientists who dive into the physics and mathematician, are they somehow intersected, or they're completely different? Actually your background is nuclear physics, correct? I understand that mathematics is a tool for you, but the way of thinking, the way of how logical conclusions comes to you, how do you, what is your agenda? It's not a mathematics, it's a different thing.
Yes. Mathematician doesn't care about reality.
Lucky. Lucky
Yeah,
there.
well, yeah. Physicist is a lot more practical because he is facing challenge and need to prove, create, develop, like nuclear physics was charged way back in mid 20th century with creation of nuclear weapon. And that was a grueling task. So it was practical, but it required a lot of very sophisticated mathematics to create the very theory of chain reactions and the fission and later fusion. And by the way, famous and infamous Manhattan Project. It created actually a lot more great mathematicians than physicists.
Wow.
If you call names like John Neyman or Turing or Wiener, they had very little to do with physics, but a lot. Entire computer universe was created back then.
Wiener is the father of cybernetics, right? Is
Yes,
he?
cybernetics,
Yeah.
of course, Wiener.
Yeah.
And he was a pure mathematician. But it's, as usual, it's always a question of money. If not Manhattan Project with its budget, if not challenge of facing Germany, and Germans were very successful in developing nuclear weapon, it might have never happened that those great people come to be known. Likewise, entire Renaissance, which was very short, by the way, short period of time, was created by Italian aristocracy and church, who gave a lot of commissions to artists. So nuclear gave a lot of commission to scientists. Funny historical fact: when nuclear bomb was first successfully tested in the Soviet Union in 1949, same day, base salaries, compensations of Soviet scientists, all of them, not only physicists, mathematicians, chemists, whoever, was doubled the same day. And since then it took another probably 50 years for great empires to realize that, well, it doesn't help much if you just give them more money. They might not create anything new.
That's true. And if you double not only money but the number of scientists, it also doesn't help.
No, it doesn't help.
It doesn't help.
Yeah.
That's interesting. My last question for today. I think that the closest scientific discipline to the questions which can be answered only by religion is theoretical physics. And on the everyday personal level, I can hear that this way or another way, physicists, they come across the fact that certain things could not be explained besides you have some creative power or purpose which created things or even the entire systems. As a scientist, what do you think about that? And probably this question will have another sub-question. Any chance science will be able to answer the question why? Because the question why has never been an agenda for science, at least at my knowledge. I never heard that any science can answer, even philosophy, which is the mother of all science. There is no question, even not an attempt to pose this question why, because science objective is not to answer the question why. But any chance in the future, science will be, or scientific methodology, will be able to spread its researchers' interests, and maybe curiosity to answer the question why. Why does the thing exist? Not how does it exist, not how does it work, and what's the rules and laws and interaction between part of the system, but why? It's interesting to hear your opinion.
Well, science was always fascinated with the matter of God. And scientists tried to prove existence of God in scientific method since medieval times. One of those notables was Benedict Spinoza, who, among other very successful scientific and philosophical books, wrote proof of divinity in geometric order. Isaac Newton thought that his most important book was about proof of existence of God. And still, up to these days, scientists try to analyze whether there is any divinity in science. Naturally, theoretical physicists are best positioned for that because they deal with realities, physics, but they deal with the reality of such significant magnitude in time, space, energy, and other stuff that really put them close to God. Einstein, who was philosopher and great theoretical physicist, but whose discoveries were significantly mathematical, found easy answer. He said that God is nature. Well, it doesn't help much.
We all know that. Yes, you don't have to be Einstein.
Yes.
You know.
But lately,
so he was cheating with his answer. Yeah.
Yes. Lately, it became more pressing question, and scientists tried to find precise tools to prove whether there is God, a divinity in our life. And now it is very complicated matter because, first of all, we know there was a Big Bang. Before Big Bang, nothing existed. No space, no time.
But now you said that there is an evidence that...
Well, yeah, that's the thing. There is an evidence that something certainly was before.
And it's I'm sorry for interrupting. And it's interesting because if you will take a look at the Indian philosophy and religious point of view, what they say, and there is a famous book which has a lot of not speculations, but I would say a lot of discussions about that, called Vasishta Yoga. What they say that each era, each period of time brings its own gods.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because they do not reject traditional religions, but what they say that we know them. But before them, there was some other set of gods and some, it's we're not talking about religion. We don't want to harm anyone's religion point of view. But it's very interesting because that evidence of existence of the universe, which was before Big Bang, kind of plays very well in harmony with that religious point of view, with that religious idea, which comes purely from the mind. It's nothing else.
Boris,
Yeah.
Those are speculations, or if you will, contemplations of different scale. Let's say we know for almost a fact that Earth exists about 5 billion years. Our known universe is likely 40 billion years old. Humanity as we know it, about 30,000 years old. Comparing to 5 billion years, there was distinct possibility that other preceding humanities existed, civilization existed. For some reason they died out or been killed by a catastrophe. We still remember Plato's book about Atlantis. It all brings a lot of complexity in our considerations. What is antique gods? Maybe that's just previous generation, previous civilizations, and all that is possible. When we talk about preceding universe, it's a bigger thing.
Yes, of course.
Indians didn't know about Big Bang. They cannot even imagine that because they had very limited concept of space and time. That came with Einstein, relativity of space and time. But you're absolutely right. Cycles of that nature come in and out.
It's an echo. I would say it's an echo, because I believe people were always interested in these topics, and just being able to analyze, they analyze possibilities. And it's interesting because it's echoed with facts.
Exactly.
So our brain is a big puzzle.
That may illustrate it another way. Matter of preceding civilizations is a subject for historians and possibly philosophers. Subject of previous universes is entirely the domain of physicists. Even more so, theoretical physicists, because experiment can say very little about it.
Yeah. Okay. But coming back to my question, yeah. Modern physicists, modern theoretical physicists, if you will think about parties, let's to simplify things, imagine we have two parties of physicists. One party believes that there is no God, it's a purely laws of nature, and nature is a God. Another party believes that no, there is something which traditionally can be called God, and of course it's not the same as holy book or holy books tell us. From scientific perspective, it's something different, but it does exist, like super power, super brain, super consciousness, super whatever. So these two parties, what do you think, what is the modern state of the science? What prevails? Based on the current state of the science, based on the current knowledge, where's the ballot? How do we vote?
It is more or less established among physicists that if God didn't want us to know whether he exists or not, and from ethical point of view he probably doesn't want us to know, he'd be quite capable of hiding all physical facts of his existence. So discovering experimentally existence of God is probably not possible. But it is likely possible through very distinct, very far-going theoretical analysis. Likewise, we just spoke about imperfection of mathematics. So there needs to be something higher than mathematics to really provide. Likewise, with existence, with physical world, there needs to be something higher than strict and boring rules of physics that give us existence. What's new in this story, and evolving very quickly, very recently, is artificial intelligence, because, and we don't know yet, if it did, evolving artificial intelligence can discover structure of human knowledge, it very well might go beyond human knowledge. If so, it can discover those structures of science and math that go beyond.
And probably this is something which we will discuss in our next episode, because it's a topic which deserves very, I would say, extended and detailed consideration.
Well, Boris, indeed, but you killed my pitch
Did
about
I?
Long Island Institute for Math and Science.
Oh my God. Do you have a good rope and piece of soap so I can hang myself?